Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good to be in the house of the Lord with you this morning. Well, it finally happened sometime since, I think, April 15th, about that time. It got to be nearly 100 degrees. And it stayed that way, I think, until this week. So isn't it great to have a little bit of cool weather for the change? How many of you went to the Auburn game last night and froze to death in the stands? Yeah. War Eagle, that's good. All right. Well, it's good to have all of you here in the house of the Lord today to worship. And we've got a great day planned for you. We're going to celebrate our saints, and we're going to get up a tree. So you'll figure that out as we go. We're going to be up a tree before it's over with, but that's good. Want to remind you of all the things happening here at the church. We have exciting things planned, and we want you to be involved in those things. Next Sunday after church, we're going to have a packing party at noon until whenever we finish. We're going to get a nice assembly line going, and I think it'll go real fast. We're going to pack up those boxes. If you've been in the office the last couple of days, you saw that we've got all the shoe boxes made up, and they're ready to pack. And Lord knows, when we start bringing stuff down from the closets and all the rooms that we've got stuff stored in, it's going to be a fun day. But you can come. We're going to have a light lunch right after. We're going to have sandwiches, chips, and drink, and we'll provide that for you. So come and stay after church, and we'll, after we have the lunch, we'll get the packing started for the Operation Christmas Child shoe boxes. Now, there's an opportunity for you to be involved in something very special. I want to stop and say a little bit about this. This is our community Thanksgiving dinner. Oftentimes, our emphasis on doing something during Thanksgiving, as far as a meal, is to feed those that are hungry and maybe the homeless. And we get so tuned in to that we miss an opportunity to minister to others that are in need during that time as well. You don't have to be poor and homeless to need fellowship, do you? Can anybody attest to that? Any of you going to have to eat alone, or maybe it's just you and your spouse, and you just really don't want to face another Thanksgiving together? Come to our church. Well, I should have said that. Somewhere that worked in my mind. Whatever.
Start over.
Let's move on. Y'all help me.
We didn't hear it.
Love you, baby. That was for Dion. Okay, so what I want you to understand is this is an opportunity. The one thing about the table of God, the table that's prepared before you today, we prepare this table for communion to come together. No one is excluded, and no one is left out. And that's the way we want our church to be. We want our church to be open to everyone. We want people to be able to feel free to come and to break bread together around this table on Thanksgiving. So if you want to come and serve, you're welcome to do that. If you want to come and just eat a meal with us and fellowship, that's the thing that will bless others the most. We have opportunities for you to do dressing and turkeys and whatever you'd like to do. There's a sign-up sheet right up here, and you can, on the altar, you can sign up for something you'd like to bring. You can bring it ahead of time if you're going out of town. But just check in with Kathy. Where's Kathy?
Oh, she's out of town.
She's not here today. Okay.
Out of town today.
Just going to see if she had anything she wanted to add to that. All right, so we're looking forward to that. And our shoe drive, Laura, where are we on our shoe drive? Have we stopped taking them, or we continue to take them? Oh, wow. Isn't that great?
A bunch of shoeless people in this.
We'll be taking those in a couple weeks. If you guys have any, take them to church or work or wherever, get them to you. But we've got the package. Happen to be here in the empty city store upstairs. You'll see 1,356 pairs of shoes now that sit on my house anymore.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to that. So our annual charge conference is going to be November the 17th at 2:30 at Flint Hill United Methodist Church. So those of you who'd like to come and be part of that are welcome to come. And we will be decorating for our Advent season. Now that doesn't seem like it should be that quick, but it is. It's going to be on the board now in just a few weeks. So November 24th, we'll decorate this place, and it looks awesome. It is an awesome time to be here to see the decorations go up. So come and plan to stay after, I believe it's after church. I have to look. Yes, right after church that Sunday, the 24th, and we'll start decorating everything. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of energy, but it comes together in a great way. So we'll look forward to that. And finally, the last thing I want you to take note of is that we are doing a makeup day for pictures. If you did not get to have your picture made for our church directory, this is your only opportunity. And I want to tell you real quickly, if you don't have your picture taken to be in the directory, then you don't get a free directory. It's going to cost us $15 per directory, I believe, is what it'll cost. And if you have a picture that you want to submit, we have to pay that. We have to pay to put that in there. So it's not as easy a process as it once was to just have photos submitted. They don't do that anymore. So I know you want to be part of this, so plan to come on November the 26th. That's a Tuesday, I believe. And we'll start scheduling people for times to come and sign up. And it's very easy, it's very quick, you can get in and out very quickly and have your picture made. So we want you to be part of this, especially if you want to get a directory without having to pay for it. So be attentive to that and go ahead and sign up as soon as you can. All right, are there any other announcements that need to be made this morning? Yes?
I just think we should thank everybody for all the candy that was given out.
Absolutely.
It was chilly, but we had lots of participants. That was just
I think it was a wonderful night. And it was about 3/4 of what we had the year previous. And a lot of kids came through, though. I didn't think they would. As cold as it was, as windy as it was, and rainy as it had been, I didn't think the kids would show up. But they did, and it was great. We popped popcorn. We gave away 550 bags of popcorn. I get tired again thinking about it. But it was wonderful, and it was good to see everybody here and participating in there as well. All right, so if there are no other announcements, we'll continue to worship together today.
Like to stand here as we sing our opening hymn. The words will be on the screen. On page 399 of your hymnal, we'll go to 36, all right.
Let us prepare to receive. I'm sorry. I'm all out of whack today. Now let us recite our Apostles' Creed together. You can locate that in your hymnal, number 881, or on the screen beside me here at front. Let us join together and affirm our faith. I believe in God,
Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived of the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The third day he arose from the dead. He ascended to heaven, and sitteth at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen.
Just a message of a word of instruction here. All the families that are here to participate today in the All Saints celebration, I would ask you now to come forward here at the altar, behind the altar here, if you would come and gather here now. This is a wonderful day today as we celebrate our All Saints Sunday. We do this every year, and the families that are here are representing, most of them they're here to represent the saints that have passed on since last year at this time, our All Saints Sunday. And so we invite them to come forward today, and we remember their loved ones, and we light this candle in reverence and memory of them. But let me say a little bit about All Saints Sunday. All Saints Sunday started at a time when the families were grieving. They wanted to remember their loved ones. They wanted to remember and be close to them. So they gathered in the cemeteries. And they gathered in the cemeteries and they began to think about their loved ones. And then great joy came over them. And I know that's not a likely place to find joy, is in a cemetery with your loved ones that you've lost and they've been buried. But, you know, if you have the hope in your heart of Jesus Christ and you have the hope of the resurrection, then you can experience that joy today. You can experience that joy today because you know that when you lost your loved one, that was not the end. That there's a great day coming when you'll be joined together and you'll live together in peace and joy, and you'll be with the living God that is with us right now. It's a great time to let that joy and the memories of your loved one come forward and come overflowing. And so when it did in the cemeteries, they began to sing. And now there's some other things came out of it. We know all about Halloween. They started dressed up in masks and kind of scaring people and that sort of stuff. And that was one part of that ritual that came out. But don't forget today of why we're here. We're all here because of the saints that continue to carry on the living legacy of the resurrection of Jesus.
Consider all the world's thy hands.
that again. They might faint if I do it again. Let's now prepare for God's tithes and our offerings this morning. You remain standing for the reading of the Word this morning. It comes from us from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 19, beginning with verse 1. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through, and a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was very wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. And since Jesus was coming that way, then when Jesus reached the spot, Jesus looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down and at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be with the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay it back 4 times the amount." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost." This is the word of God for the people of God.
Praise be to God.
Good to see you. You know, there was a great cloud of witnesses. You know, you've heard that before in other scriptures. You've heard about the great crowd of witnesses that pressed in upon Jesus as he was traveling and bearing witness to that which was to come. And so here we see again a great crowd of witnesses. So great that they're in Jericho. Jericho, which is probably the most dangerous area, probably even to this day is a very dangerous area around Jerusalem. It's that road that a lot of people have to go around the crooks and the crannies. They've tried to straighten it out at their highways and all, but they still have to go through a lot of valleys and hills to get to Jericho from Jerusalem. And they're going up a hill, and actually from Jerusalem they're going downhill to Jericho, and they're following that valley, and they twist and turn, and there's so many shadows and so many places where evil can rest. We know that in our lives today, don't we? We know that there are places and times when the evil can rest and just wait upon us. So that's what was happening, but Jesus had come to give hope to those that were being preyed upon by the darkness and the things of the dark. So today we see Jesus was coming through Jericho, and Jericho's a nice, quaint little town today. And it was probably even smaller then. I'm sure it was. But it was a place where you could find a spring of fresh water. And that's what it was like to have Jesus coming into your town. It was like having your own spring of fresh water. It's like that water would bring forth life, and you see the trees. Now, a sycamore fig tree, the only experience I've had with fig trees has been kind of dwarf fig trees. They get about this tall, maybe a little over my head, and they're beautiful, and they had nice fruit on them, and I enjoy them very much. But when I saw the first sycamore tree there in Jericho, I was amazed at how big and massive that tree was. It was the centerpiece of that town. And they had left it there as a monument. And I don't know how many trees. Now, we're not going to get into these debates about was that the actual tree. I doubt it. And I know there are olive trees that live thousands of years. But usually it takes 700 years for an olive tree to die, is what I've been told. And so it's in the process of dying now. But so we see some of those that are over 2,500 years old. They've been carbon dated at that. don't know if that's truthful or not. I feel assuredly that it's close to it because those are some old-looking trees. But these sycamore trees that they have in Jericho are beautiful. I mean, they are beautiful. And I can understand now that that would have been a likely place that a short little man would have wanted to have climbed up a tree to see somebody in a crowd. We don't understand crowds today. We don't understand what crowds are doing. Oftentimes we don't understand what crowds are even their purposes are for. But when we see people gathering it together, we think something's up. And so even those that didn't want anything to do with Jesus that day were peering at the crowds, probably through their shutters or their curtains. The shears of the curtains are kind of just getting the angle just right so they could see this Jesus. Because they'd heard so many great things about him. They heard how he had put smiles on people's faces. I talked about Tony today, putting smiles on people's faces. Jesus did that. Jesus was a smile maker. He wasn't a dentist or somebody that made dentures, but he did that by loving them. The greatest way that we can have smiles on our faces is have somebody that will love us. And that's what was happening in that crowd that day. And that's why this man climbed up in that tree. He wanted to see what was putting smiles on people's faces. Do we have smiles on our faces today? I want to challenge you because I think sometimes we get stoic. I had somebody tell me the night of our Halloween, "Smile, Brother Mike. People are coming. Kids are coming. Smile." Well, I didn't think I wasn't smiling. I just knew I wasn't trying to smile. I was in thought. And that's my resting face. And I guess it can be kind of bad sometimes. I don't know. But I was intent about doing the work. And I'm sure there were people there that were not smiling. They were intent on doing the work of Jesus. Those disciples that had been called out of lives of separation, called into a life of inclusiveness with Jesus. So we had great things were happening there in Jericho that day. But we don't understand that crowd very well unless we understand this, is that the first point I want to make is that oftentimes we miss who's looking for Jesus, don't we? We miss it because they might not be the people that we think are really looking for Jesus. We might not understand who's in the crowd. There's this rookie policeman tells the story about how that he was on his first patrol and he really wanted to impress his sergeant. He had to do a duty that night with his sergeant, and they do that and kind of put somebody with somebody. They team up, if you will. And they go out on their beat for the first few nights until they kind of get comfortable, and then they let them out on their own. So this rookie hadn't been let out on his own yet, and he was with his sergeant that night. And so he wanted to impress him. And they got a call on the radio, and it says there's a crowd of people loitering on this particular street. So when they got to that street, this boy was just all eyes. He was looking everywhere to find the crowd of loiterers. So he got to the street and he saw a corner and he said, "Sergeant, right over there, pull over, I'll take care of this." And so he jumps out of the car and he runs over to this crowd and he says, "People, leave this area right now. This is unlawful assembly, so get out of here right now." And the people looked at him kind of dumb, like, what is he doing? Why did he tell us to get out of here? And he raised his voice again and said, "I said out of here." The people looked at him again like he was crazy, but they did what he said. They left. He's feeling real good. He walks over to his sergeant. "Hey, Sarge, how'd that do?" He's all full of himself, and the sergeant said, "Well, you did good, son, I guess, but you just ran everybody off from the bus stop." We don't always understand crowds. We don't always understand why people are gathered. Sometimes we're looking so desperately to fill some void that's in our heart. We don't always understand the crowds and the people that are there that are looking for transformation, that want something so different that they know that they've got to have Jesus. my daughter, I'm so proud of Kristen. She works for a hotel chain, and I got to meet some of her colleagues last night, some of her peers. I was performing a wedding ceremony for one of the girls that she works with. And we were all gathered there, and they were having a good time. And I was thinking about the story because I was trying to really, during the reception, I was trying to preach this sermon because I knew I'd flop if I didn't start practicing last night. So I'm there, I'm thinking about how that, she can't always tell us who she's meeting because she can't take selfies. They got rules. They won't let you take selfies with stars. But she's had some really pretty impressive stars that have come through. And they have their entourage. I mean, they come in and they've got their entourage of people around them. And they have a crowd of people taking care of them, and especially if they're superstars. And this was a particular time she was telling me a story about a star that I remember from my youth. And his name was Alice Cooper. And Alice Cooper was quite a character. I mean, if you read his biography, he tells about how that he drank a bottle of whiskey every single day. Every single day he drank a bottle of whiskey. And he got drunk, and he was just incredibly impulsive, and he did crazy things. And he pushed his life to excess. And then one day he realized that was leading to death. He realized that he couldn't continue to live like that, and he found Jesus. He found Jesus, and he restored his marriage. And Kristen tells about how that when they came in, usually you start looking for a star. You look at the crowd of people that are around them, and the hustle and the bustle as they're coming in demanding things and wanting all the perks. And so she was watching, and she didn't notice this man come walking up to her and says, "Hello, I'm Alice Cooper." And she's like, "Oh gosh, this is Alice Cooper." And she described him as being someone that looked like her granddad. He was just mild-mannered. He had a nice little sweater on. Now, he had a little bit of makeup on his eyes. That's probably hadn't washed off from the concert the night before. But he didn't dress in this elaborate clothing that he usually does. He's just an everyday person. And he wanted to eat things that were healthy. He didn't want these exotic meals planned for him, and he didn't ask for M&Ms at every coffee table and all the crazy things that superstars ask for. He just wanted a simple little life, and he wanted to make sure that his wife was taken care of, that she got to go shopping and got to go to some of the performing arts and some things like that, so that she could enjoy life while he was doing his Alice Cooper business, okay? But then I read in a thing after Kristen was telling me about him, I read about how that today Alice Cooper travels around and he meets with other superstars and other musicians that are living pretty wild, exotic lives. And it's there that he tells the story about how he transformed his life. And he tells them about Jesus. I mean, can you imagine the first person that shares a true, authentic story about Jesus is Alice Cooper? How crazy is that? But I think it's great because those people are the ones that want to hear it the most. People that have lived hard and have suffered greatly, they want to hear about Jesus because they see it, they get it, they understand that Jesus is exactly what will fit that hole in their hearts. They get the transformation of Jesus. And that's what he did for these other stars. And he says the ones that you least expect are the ones that get it. We got to keep that in mind when we're seeing crowds today. When we see crowds of people that are clamoring around and we're trying to bring Christ into our community, we don't need to overlook the people that we think that are too far gone, that won't get it, because they're the ones that will get it the most. The other point I want to bring out, and then I'm going to close this up, is about don't forget who Jesus is looking for. Sometimes we don't see the people that are looking for Jesus, but we need to understand who Jesus is looking for. Who is Jesus looking for? It's the ones that He called into ministry with Him. It's as clear as day to me that those people that were disenfranchised, those people that didn't have hope, those are the people that Jesus are looking for today. The people that are suffering and they're poor and that are in need. Those are the people that Jesus is looking for this very moment. People that are brokenhearted and feel abandoned or feel betrayed. Those are the people that Jesus is looking for today. Jesus is looking for those people that every day in the United States, every day 1,000 people attempt suicide. Can you believe that? In a year's time, 365,000 people are so desperate for something to fill the hole in their hearts and give them hope that they cry out and to the point where when they think that there's no other hope, there's no other solving this hole in my heart, that they do something so horrible that they try to take their own life. They do that because people are missing them in the crowds. They do that because people don't understand who Jesus is looking for. We need to be looking for the people that Jesus are looking for today. When He found the fishermen, these are stinky people. These are people that you didn't want as your neighbors. These are people that you didn't want to associate with. These are the people that had to live outside the walls and the gates of the cities that people lived in. They were out there alone mostly and unprotected. They had nobody to take care of them. And so we see this, and we see that they're the tanners, the people that had to use urine in the work of tanning hides. And nobody wanted to have them at their tables. Nobody wanted to invite them for a meal. They smelled bad, and they looked horrible. They probably didn't have anything. And it was so sad to see the people, the lepers. Look at the smile that Jesus put on that leper when He took his hand and touched him, when he knew that he was so unclean that he had to, in no way, he had to warn everybody, don't come near me, I'm unclean, I'm unclean. That day Jesus took a hold of his hand. Can you imagine what that felt like? The warmth, the strength, the love and the dedication that Jesus extended to that man. What about this chief tax collector, Zacchaeus, who found himself in a tree looking for hope? And he looked down and saw Jesus, and Jesus responded. Jesus responded because that's who He's been looking for. He's been looking for people like this. He's been looking for people that cheat people and are so desperate and so filled with anger or rage that they have to hurt other people. Or maybe it's because they have no hope in their lives. They're so desperate. They want to hold on to possessions, and they want more and more. And the more that they get, the more they have to have, because it doesn't fill that hole. It doesn't help them. It doesn't take the pain away. It doesn't help them to see that things are ever going to get any better. And he was in a position where he was the most hated of the people in that community. He could charge them anything he wanted. He could have a surcharge on them and extort everything he wanted out of these people. He could definitely get their attention. And we see that this is the kind of people that Jesus says, come down from that tree. You've been looking for me. Come down from that tree for this day. This day, friends, Jesus is here for you. Isn't that great? Jesus is here for you today, this very moment. No matter how broken you are, how lost you are, or how alienated you've become from the people around you. This is the day when Jesus says, I'm going to come and I'm going to go and I'm going to be at your table and we're going to break bread together. And it's there that transformation will take place. You never know When I went to Cuba several years ago, before they released and started letting people inside Cuba again, I went there and I was so focused on the people that were there in Cuba on that island that were desperate for Jesus. There are more new churches forming in Cuba than in all of Florida. I mean, they're doing just like John Wesley did. The Methodist churches are flourishing on that island because they're meeting in homes and they're inviting people around the table and fellowshipping with them and giving them hope and showing them dignity and encouraging them. And I spent all that time, 2 weeks there, and I was preaching in churches every night, and I was going out into the city, and I was loving on people, and I was trying to give a presence of love and hope from Jesus Christ. And you know where I was most effective that trip? Now you're going to laugh about this. It was in the bathroom. Yeah, it was. Literally in the bathroom at the airport. I had gone to the bathroom, and you have to carry everything with you. You can't leave anything unattended or they'll take it away and they'll think it's a bomb or something. But I had things I was bringing back for Kristen. I was bringing back a little coffee set. It had little cups and saucers, and I knew she would love that, and I really wanted her to get it. It wasn't very expensive. It probably didn't cost me but a couple of dollars. I mean, that's how cheap stuff was over there. And so I got this thing, and I held it in my hand because I didn't want it to break. I didn't want to put it in my luggage and all. And so I'm there, and I keep this thing all through the process of going through the airports and through customs and all. And I finally got to sit down, and I went to the bathroom and hung it on the little hook. When I got through, I left out and washed my hands and all, and left, and realized when I got back to my seat that I had left the package there. So I ran desperately back into the bathroom, and there was this little man, little short man. And I saw him, and I said, "Did you see a package? I lost a package that I was bringing home to my daughter." And he said, "Oh, I was taking it to the lost and found. It's on my cart right here. Come." And so I noticed this name tag, and it was George. George, thank you so much. Thank you, George, for this. This is a great blessing because I didn't want to lose this package. You see, I've been to Cuba. Oh, you've been to Cuba? You've been to Cuba? And what were you there for? And I told him, I said, I'd gone there and I was preaching in the churches. I'd gone there to help some of the churches to get started. And his eyes got big, and I told him the towns that we went to, and we had a little conversation right there in that bathroom. I'm big in bathrooms, I guess. But so there we were, and he says, "I want to know more about your Jesus." I said, "Come on." Yeah, I had him then, brother. I had him. And it was great. We walked back out, and we were sitting at the chairs in one of the little terminals, and I start telling him everything I could tell him about Jesus. I read Romans 8, and I told him about how that you could give your heart to Jesus and how it was personal. And I told him about the grace and how the transformation comes. And I told him about the everlasting life, and I told him about the hope of Jesus. And I was so excited as I was telling him this because he was taking in every word, every word. He had climbed up this biggest tree that he could find in that airport, and he was standing, and he was looking at Jesus. And it was great. And as he saw Jesus more and more, the things that darkness that had attached itself to him were just falling off. And so now, he says, "I want him in my heart." And he got down on his knees, and I began to pray over him. And so I was praying, and the Holy Spirit was moving in a powerful way, and I was laying hands upon him, and I was praying over him, and I was pleading the blood of Jesus over his life, and I wanted Jesus to give him hope, and I wanted this to be a moment in his life that totally transformed him, where he would never doubt again the love of Jesus that had come his way. And so it was there that as my eyes were closed and I was praying so fervently, so hard, and it was there that you could sense somebody walking up, and I sort of opened my eyes just to to get a glance of what it was that was coming in around me. And it was 2 security guards. And I thought, oh God, don't let them stop this. Don't let them stop this until he's received everything, Lord, that you want him to receive. So I continued to pray, and I prayed more earnestly. And I prayed, and I heard them getting on their walkie-talkies, and I couldn't understand what they were saying because they were speaking in Spanish. And I thought, oh Lord, they think I'm some sort of criminal, and they're going to call for backup, and they're going to arrest me right here in the airport for doing what you want me to do, Lord. But when I opened my eyes, and George's smile was so big, and he had received everything that God wanted him to receive that day, I hugged him, and I just turned to the officers, and about that time, there's this big Hispanic woman that was bouncing, and she was running as fast as she could straight towards me. Remember the sermon the other day when I was talking about the DS, talking about the bear that was running toward him, snorting and growling? It was kind of like that. But it wasn't. She had a smile on her face. And when she got there, she grabbed me and hugged me really tight. And she says, God bless you. God bless you. I have been praying for this man for 3 years that he would come to know Christ. And this day, the Lord came into his house and he was saved. We got to get more intentional about our crowds, folks. We got to get more intentional about seeing the people that are looking for Jesus and showing them Jesus. We got to be more intentional about people that Jesus is looking for and not overlooking them, but loving them. And being bold in our proclamation that Jesus is the answer to that void that's in their heart. Just as Jesus came that day and as he came that day, he prepared a table that he feasted at. Just as we are preparing the table today, he took the simple elements of the table that day and he lifted up the bread, the one loaf, and he broke that bread and said, take and eat of this. Do this as often as you shall in remembrance of me. For this is my body which is broken for you. That all that eat of this shall be sustained. All that eat of this shall be saved. All that eat of this shall have new life in me. Then he took the fruit of the vine. He took the last cup of the Seder meal that he was participating in. He lifted that cup up to God and asked God to bless it, and God blessed it just as he blesses this for us today. He said, take and drink of this, for this is my blood poured out for the sins of many. All that drink of this shall not thirst, but have everlasting life. Today, as we come and as we drink of this cup of redemption, as we eat of this one body, this one loaf, is this not also a means of grace for us? It's a means of grace that's extended to all and everyone, so that you might truly experience Christ in your life forever and ever. I invite those that are serving today to come forward.